What's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. New video. Today I want to talk about Pelican Bay. You know, for the longest time, San Quentin and Folsom were the most notorious prisons out of California. And for some people that don't know any better, they still bring up those two prisons, not knowing that those two prisons are very low level. Level 2s and 3s, right? When maximum security in California is level 4, and there's two levels to that, level 4 180 being the highest. Out of all the modern day prisons outside of California, the prison most notorious is Pelican Bay. The reason being the shoe and the riot of 2000. Today I want to talk about some of the stuff in regards to that 2000 riot. I've touched on this riot a lot. I've hinted at certain things. Today I want to get a little bit more in depth, right? And it's kind of like a lesson in minding your own business, okay? So in Pelican Bay in 2000, it was still the llavero system, meaning one shot caller. For the Southerners, it was just one dude, right? But even during the llavero era, the llavero always formed a mesa, a table, a committee, whatever you want to call it, of people that he trusted, that were going to be advisors. When he wanted to do something, he was going to run it by them to get their opinion, see how they think about it, what they have to say about it, if they have a different idea, a better idea. But at the end of the day, the llavero made the final call, and his voice was the only one that mattered. Later, when it turned to the mesa system, it was 3 to 5 people on a table, committee, whatever you want to call it. Everyone's voice is equal, and that's why it had to be an odd number, so there's never a tie. Now, getting back to 2000, it actually started in 1999. The disrespect occurred in 1999. The riot should have never happened. I've been consistent in that. I will always be consistent in that. The riot should have never happened. The guy that disrespected the Southerner verbally, he was a J-Cat, meaning he was a guy that was not playing with a full deck. I've spoken about how this guy was a Muslim and a Crip. He never really hung around with anybody. He would go out to the yard and literally be in the middle of the yard in B facility in Pelican Bay. And he would start calling out football plays and audibling as if he was a quarterback. The ball would get hiked to him by an imaginary center. He's reading the field for his wide receivers, tight end. He's dodging defensive ends and linebackers that are trying to sack him. He would throw the ball, and then immediately he would turn into the wide receiver, the tight end, whoever he was throwing it to. And he would catch the ball, and he scored a touchdown every time. If he wasn't doing that, he'd be hitting the heavy bags. But this dude was a certified J-Cat. Dude was not playing with a full deck, right? So, in one of the shops, one of the trades that he was in, he disrespected a Southerner. Basically, Southerners were talking, and he was walking by and said, "Man, that ain't how it happened," and it turned ugly. At least, I can't say that. It didn't turn ugly. It got tense. The cops panicked, hit the buzzer. Everybody went back to their cells. The homie that was involved wound up getting snatched up and validated 2 weeks before going home. They rushed it because they must have had information of what he was going to be doing on the streets. Those of us that knew that he had told he was going to be given some responsibilities on the streets. Him getting validated was going to put him on high control parole. SSU's going to be following him around. And that put a monkey wrench into some stuff. That's one of the main things that pissed people off. Now, I've touched on majority of all that stuff in other videos. Again, this riot shouldn't have happened. The guys that were running the yard at the time, the llavero himself was respected. His mesa, a lot of people didn't like them. They felt they were too arrogant. I was always of the mind, and when homies would tell me, man, fuck these guys, eh? And I used to tell them, hey, they're doing their job, though. Like, whether you personally like these guys, they're handling their business. I didn't have any ill will towards any of them. Did I like their estilo, their style? There was a couple of them I didn't care for it, but it was nothing major to me, because in prison you're gonna run into a lot of people you don't like their style, and they might be the one that gets to dictate your program. You got to learn how to accept that, right? You got to learn how to work around that. Now, what happened was some dudes on the yard that didn't like the leadership, they started riding to the back, to the shoe, complaining. All these vatos let this happen and that happen, and this vato's still here, and we're just right here like, what's up? And we want to get these guys. It was one of those things, right? So you had a crew of homies come out of the shoe, and they came out gathering intel. What really happened? What happened with that dude? Why is that dude still here? And they formed their own mesa to go against the leadership. And I remember just sitting back watching it. And I've said, the guys that formed the rogue leadership, I actually was cool with those guys. And I told them on more than one occasion, you're doing this wrong, eh? Like, I get you want to push the issue on this dude that disrespected the homie. I get that. But what you guys have formed and the way that you guys are trying to divide the yard, it's not a good thing. It's not a good look. It's going to get a lot of people hurt. And what I left out was, you're going to get yourself hurt, because these dudes, some of them had done more, they had been down longer than me, had more shoot terms, more shoot time than me. They knew better. And I watched as youngsters, because the majority of that yard, it's shoe kickouts. Dudes who have put in work, dudes who are connected. But there's a small minority that came from the reception centers. And those youngsters, I was hearing them, I was watching them pick sides. There was a youngster or two that I told him, hey, that ain't your business, eh? How you gonna pick a side? Like, when it's time to roll, we roll. And whoever's wrong, they'll get handled. But you're nobody. Just relax. Do you think they listened? Charlie. In their minds, they were in Pelican Bay. They hadn't earned anything within the system to be on that yard, but the CDC sent them there. And in their mind, they were now gangsters, and they wanted to get involved in gangster activities. Now, one of the things that the rogue mesa had planned, and only a few of us heard about it, we caught wind of it. They were legitimately kicking around the idea that we're going to force this yard to go down. We're going to go to war. And when we do, the rogue mesa was going to whack the real leadership for the raza during the riot. I don't know how many people became aware of that plan, but I know two other people. So at least three of us became aware of it. And all three of us told them, there's no fucking way. There's no way you're going to hit homies during something. Like, if you're going to do that before anything. But once that thing goes and we're engaged with another faction, another group, another ethnicity, whatever it is, we don't fucking do that. That goes on their wins and losses. Like, yeah, we whacked those dudes. No. That was Southerners whacking Southerners. No way. This whole damn thing is wrong. So luckily they decided not to do it. When the shit jumped, everybody, went after who they were supposed to go after. It didn't go down the way. I mean, it would have been really, really bad if it wouldn't have jumped off the way it jumped off. It was really, really gonna be bad. But when the dust settled and everybody went to Ad Sag, went to the hole, the guys that were on the rogue team, I'm talking about the guys that were connected and had created that rogue mesa, 4 of the 5 of them got whacked. And probably about 50 Southerners wound up either getting whacked or PC'ing up because they realized they chose the losing team. They chose the losing side. They didn't listen when they were told, it ain't your fucking business. The business would be if we go to war. That's the only thing you need to worry about. And you don't need to open your mouth and add to anything because the people that need to be speaking are speaking. We have 2 eyes and 2 ears for a reason. We should be watching and listening twice as much as talking. So, it was a very ugly time. Seeing all these dudes, and again, the rogue dudes, a lot of people liked them. They were very cordial and respectful. They lost track of the big picture. Was it greed? Was it envy? Was it lust for power? I don't think so. Like I said, I knew some of them personally. One of the ones that I had the most respect for, matter of fact, him and his homeboy didn't get hit. They were both from the same county. But the one that I was really, really cool with, years later, 2005 in C2, he hung himself, killed himself. He was there, but he had issues because of the riot, man. And I remember the day he killed himself. They had just served chow. It was breakfast. And I don't know if the cops forgot something, but they literally had just left his pod. And I mean, it was maybe 5 minutes at the most. They went back in there and he was already dead. He had grabbed his tray and then did himself in. That was just, I know everybody. Well, I know the majority, people I was talking to in the shoe, people in my pod were like, damn, And that was just another casualty. 5 years later, it was another casualty of February 23rd, 2000. Poor decision making. That's what happens in prison when you stick your nose in other people's business. That riot didn't have to happen. If it wasn't for the Southern power struggle, that riot would have never happened. There could have been a way to figure it out. But they kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And when the blacks finally told that guy, and it was not Monster Cody. People, the guy's name was Monster. He was not Monster Cody. I don't know why people think that anybody that's black, you hear the name Monster, it's Monster Cody. It's not. When the blacks told Monster, hey, these essays, they're not letting up, man. Just roll it up. And he rolled it up. He became a problem for another yard. And that handcuffed the Southerners that day. Anyways, that's my video for the day. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them, man. I'm out of here.